Yo, what's up, guys? We're back again with another Mythic Plus VOD review. Before we jump straight into the video, I want you guys to know that I've been streaming a lot more on Twitch, so come and check that out. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. Alrighty, guys, we're back again with another Mythic Plus VOD review. This time we have a Temple of Sethraliss. I believe it is on the dungeon level 22. It is on the affixed set of Sanguine Fortified with the Enchanted Heavy Beguiling, and you do have Grievous involved. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that's going on inside of this instance. I end up doing a pretty sizable amount of damage, but I feel like Moonkin's damage overall is kind of contingent on a couple things. One of which is whether or not you have a Demon Hunter. The second one is probably whether or not you end up getting a good staff or you end up dying over the course of the whole entire dungeon. Those two things are pretty important just for how you're going to be playing out the dungeon overall. So our first pull of the instance is actually kind of a dangerous pull. It's this double marksman pup pack, but if you're running with a more coordinated group, this pull can actually be pretty safe, especially whenever you do have Bloodlust available to you. You actually saw our Demon Hunter get hit by that penetrating shot from this marksman here, or the piercing shot from the marksman here. Power shot, whatever the fuck it is. And he ends up actually going down. Wait, did we wipe it? No, we didn't wipe this. Okay, so he ends up actually going down, but we end up just battle res again and recovering it. We're going to be typhooning towards this middle area, which I think in retrospect seems like it's a pretty bad idea. I think we'd rather the other restoration druid and myself would rather position towards the middle and typhoon down the stairs. But overall, that's actually fine. I think I probably should have used Incarn there too, but the pack dies relatively quickly, so you're not in too bad of a spot. So there's something interesting with this Dust Devil and this Emissary of the Tides. Most of the time, the Tides would protect the cast of this Dust Devil, but due to the Z-axis on this rug, this Dust Devil's casts are going to be able to be kicked or CC'd or whatever else. So you actually see me using Solar Beam in order to be able to interrupt that. I'm also still saving Incarnation. I'm probably going to pop it at the very beginning of this boss, Adderus and Aspix. I still think that was a mistake. I still think I should have used it on the first pack of the instance. I should have just gone pre-Incarn plus my Astral Power into the second Incarn, and it would have all been okay. The Shroud of Fang comes out. Hold on, let me pause this and back it up for a second. The Shroud of Fang actually comes out, and our tank instantly gets stunned, and you actually see me trees off as much of the stuff as I can. Obviously, the Tides is in the pack, so it doesn't get all of it, but whenever the Shroud of Fang does come and stun your tank, you definitely should be holding trees for that, because your tank's at a pretty good... it's liable to die most of the time whenever that does occur. Unless you're running with a Brewmaster Monk, which then it can be okay. But other tanks will have to pre-wall if you're playing with a Prot Warrior or pop some major defensive cooldowns, and you'd rather just trees it off. So that's something you can think about as well. Alright, so Adderus and Aspix here, they need to be maintained at least 15 yards away from one another. And the reason for that being is because of Twin Moons. The dot will actually hit everything else. In addition to that, if you're playing with a Fire Mage or another class, like a Demon Hunter, where they'd rather have the bosses stacked on top of one another for Ignite or Blade Dance or whatever, you can't do that, because all of your abilities cleave within 8 yards just passively. Empowered Solar Wrath cleaves 8 yards, Sunfire cleaves 8 yards, Lunar Strike cleaves 8 yards, so you actually can't do that. As for rotating kicks on Aspects, you actually should go 2 melee kicks into your Solar Beam. And basically the reason for that is that, okay, so for one, the 2 melee kicks will get you to the Conduction cast, and then after the Conduction cast, the boss does a jolt. And on that jolt is actually very dangerous for the person with the Conduction, so that's the one that you want to lock out as a Balanced Druid, because you get a 6-second lock on it, which means that it'll go straight into static shock afterwards, just because of how lockout timings work. Plus, you want to be a ranged kick on that one just in general because of how the Conduction ends up working. So there's just a lot of nuance to it. Just trust me whenever I say Balanced Druid should be the third kick here. You should prioritize having your melee kick the first 2, and then you're kicking the third there. That is after the Conduction cast. The boss is on a 1-minute timer too, so you can actually just beam every single one on that third set. You see our Rogue grapples out there and kicks it. We're trying to get the bosses a little bit closer, so it's a little bit easier on them to kick. Okay, anyways. So another thing with this boss being on a 1-minute timer is this Conduction is also on 1 minute. You should probably pre-bark. You actually see me do it there. I pop Bark Skin right before the Conduction ends on Tiny Fatbird or Healer here. And basically what that allows me to do is if I get the conduction in the next round, I'll be able to have my bark skin available for the DR on the conduction, while at the same time having bark skin for the static shock whenever that is going out. All right, that was a lot. That's basically the TLDR of how you play Adderus and Aspects as a Moonkin. This fight actually sucks ass, so it's a lot to remember. It's a lot to think about. There's also something else, is this on Adderus here, whenever he's not the active boss, he'll actually teleport to the nearest player. Don't teleport him within 15 yards for Twin Moon Cleave. There's also the Arcing Dash. I don't like to soldier at the boss whenever the boss is casting Arcing Dash. There, that's it. That's all of it. Man, I almost spent this whole entire boss fight trying to explain how to play all of this as a balanced druid. This fight sucks so bad as Moonkin, because of how Twin Moons and your dots cleaving functions. So you see me waiting here, not attacking into the lightning shield because I'm being a good boy, not griefing. And then, you guys don't see this, but I see it on my screen. As soon as that boss dies, I literally sit back in my seat and I'm just like, thank goodness. Yeah, so making sure that the bosses are separated enough to where you're not twin mooning yourself is just the most important thing. So, and that comes with tank experience, because I would say probably most tanks don't know to do that, because I don't know, either they don't run with balanced druids regularly, they're not very smart, they're not in voice with you, maybe you're pugging or something like that. Alrighty, so we get down the bridge. I don't die to the arrows, fortunately enough this time, so hey, sometimes it works out, right? So we're just killing this one rider, and fast forward a little bit. Alright, so now we're shrouding past some of these trash packs, and just because they are a little bit challenging, we'd rather pull some other stuff. So now we're going to pull this rider into this Tides pack down at the bottom of the bridge here. This is going to be where I'm going to be looking to use my Incarn. I'm playing Visions of Perfection Major, and basically the play with it in Temple of Sethraliss is just to mash it on CD. You can't really go wrong with just popping it on cooldown as a Moonkin, just because with the 225-ish second cooldown on it that you do get, plus the random procs per minute that you obtain, plus Arcanic Pulsar, you'd rather just like mash it just on CD as much as you can. And it's like I always say in all of my videos, unless you're explicitly holding it with intent, using it is better than just holding it. Alrighty. So we're making our way through this. Something that you can also do is you can trees on these tender mobs. The tenders actually throw out this dot that you can actually see that's going on people. It is also dispellable, but the trees can actually soak up some of the dot as well. So there's a lot of benefit to using trees on those too. Alright. Rider also does a cleave, so you can actually you need to watch out a little bit, because the Rider, if he cleaves your melee, will put them in pretty big danger. But trees will not taunt this Rider whenever he's mounted still on this big Crowlusk. So you can actually kind of play around that a little bit. If you'd like, you can trees a little bit early to make sure that you taunt all of the tenders and incubators off of your tank, but not taunt the Riders so that your melee won't get cleaved. Or you can taunt it to where your tank can run away. There's a lot of ways that you can play around it. It just depends on what you want to do over the course of the whole entire dungeon. So you just have to communicate that with your tank a little bit. You actually see me dispelling the dots that are going on in some of our players. They are Poison, and Balanced Druid and Monk both have access to Poison Dispel, so we have actually a triple Poison Dispel in this group, which is pretty nice. You also see my Opie wheel, OPIE, if you're looking for something to bind your potions to. Man, what is our Demon Heart? I think our Demon Heart probably just got hit by Cleave there. I definitely shouldn't be starfalling on this many targets. 5 targets is not enough to starfall on. So there are some times that you'd actually starfall on 5 targets if you have too many empowerments. I'm running Power of the Moon, so sometimes I get really high on empowerments and I'll have to starfall on lower levels of targets. But that was not one of those moments. I just wasted AP. Starfall is bad. When in doubt, just press Star Surge. Alrighty, so we're gonna do this Crowlusk Rider pack here with this Enchanted Emissary. And then we're going to be looking to pull the Nimbus into the top half of Merektha. You can actually pull the Nimbus through the wall. And I don't remember if I grab it in this clip, or I don't remember if I grab it in this spot or not, but I can show you how to grab it. Or I can show you where you should be standing to be able to grab it. It's really easy as a balanced druid because you do have instant cast ability, so you'll just like mash one of them while jumping to try to grab it. Alright, so we kill off that pack. Typhoon in order to not sanguine the mobs. Okay, so Nimbus, you like go and stand over here next to these eggs, and then you're just going to be like mashing a dot, and it'll just pull it through the wall. Oh, I missed it. So basically I need to be standing like further back. Somebody else grabbed it, I think. I think our Resto Druid grabbed it. It's pretty easy though. And it's nice to pull into Merektha. And that's what I was saving Incarn for. That's why I didn't use it just like on CD there. Is Merektha's kind of finicky, especially at higher levels of gear, or higher levels of the dungeon. I don't know if I'd recommend this if you're doing like anything less than like a 20, but having double Incarn on Merektha is very nice because she either pushes at percentage phases or she pushes after a certain period of time. And on high levels or on Tyrannical, making sure that you push her at this like, I think it's like 65, 40, I think it's like 65 and 40% at which you push her, as opposed to whenever she times out, is fairly important, because if she's timing out, then she's going to be at higher levels, and then she'll come up on the last phase of the fight at like, if she comes up at like 50%, you're going to have to sit there with the strikers and Ophidians, these like snake mobs. You're going to have to sit there with the strikers and the Ophidians for forever. So making sure that you have enough priority boss damage in the first two phases is pretty important. But Merektha is down at 65%. It's also a fortified week, so that's less important on fortified weeks. That's far more important on tyrannical weeks. But it is also important to think about just relative to how the key is going. So that's just one of those things that you gotta notice. We also did drop the Sanguine Pool of the Nimbus out in the middle of the room, but not in like some of the, so basically Merektha will spawn like here, but the Nimbus is a little bit off of center, so that's just a way that we don't heal the boss. So we get the strikers on us. I panic because I was kind of scared there and accidentally typhoon the striker into Sanguine. Don't do that, that's bad. But that's something you can do. Did he just... No, man. Okay, the Demon Hunter just beamed into the dust clouds, which is pretty bad. So with our Demon Hunter being dead at the very beginning of it, we were at a loss of our AoE stun because Leg Sweep wasn't up yet. So the strikers casted Blinding Sand before our Demon Hunter had properly gotten rezzed and was able to Chaos Nova them. So let me try to explain this. How you deal with the strikers in that second intermission is you'll go AoE stun into AoE stun to try to sync up all of the strikers' casts of the Blinding Sand, and then you'll either let the cast go off or you'll cancel it with Typhoon. If you let the cast go off and you hit it like right as it's casting, the Blinding Sand won't, or not the Blinding Sand, but the Dust Cloud won't actually block the Typhoon where it normally would. I said Blinding Sand a couple times as Dust Cloud. I don't know. Blinding Sand is the boss ability. But the Dust Cloud actually won't block the Typhoon. And instead, it will actually just allow you to knock straight through. So that's just how you can deal with that pretty easily for people who are looking for some tips as to how to deal with that. Alternatively, you can just play with a Monk. For some reason, you can Ring of Peace through the Dust Cloud and it will knock mobs. Hey, that works too. So there's a bunch of variations of ways that you can actually do this. We're shrouding again. We don't need any of that trash count. Okay, Stormcaller. Over here, you see he's actually protected by this Emissary of the Tides down here at the bottom. Once he loses that debuff, we're going to sap him, and then we're going to pull this Nimbus into this double Dervish pack. Okay, so now he's sapped. Now we're walking this Nimbus into this Dervish pack. This is pretty dangerous on Grievous. Kind of depends on your level as to how dangerous it actually is. More dangerous on Grievous and Fortified than it would be otherwise. There are some of the fixes that make this relatively dangerous. I guess during the spot I did get a sub during this, which is cool. Thank you guys so much. I've actually gotten a lot of support on my Twitch, and I've been running a lot of keys lately, so if you're looking for any of that content, make sure to check out my Twitch page. For all those who are viewing this on YouTube, if you're viewing it live, shout out to you guys. I appreciate you all. Alrighty. Dervishes drop 5 Sanguine Pools whenever they die. Knock them out knock these mobs out instantly. I don't know why. I don't know why dervishes drop 5 sanguine pools whenever they die, but they do, and it's really, really lame. So, yeah, that's cool. Also, the dervishes got changed from always teleporting to your tank to now only teleporting to the nearest target because Blizzard loves changing things for no apparent reason. So, yeah, that's how they teleport. So just note that. I know prior to this there was some issues with people treancing some dervishes. I don't know who would ever do such a thing. It was definitely not me. And killing melee with the circle on the ground, but now the melee are killing themselves. It's not my fault anymore. Right on time. Alrighty, now we're gonna do the triple dervish pack. You should bark skin early on this pack. And we're also marking one of them with skull. We're looking to nuke down the skull marker first, and then basically once the skull marker dies, we're going to be looking to typhoon them like across this way to, again, because the 5 sanguine pool shenanigans with this shit. Alrighty, we can skip through this though. Alrighty, they die. We use Ring of Peace because they're too close to the wall, so there was going to be some issues with that. Alrighty, cool. So now on to Galvazzt. Galvast's main gimmick is that you have to soak these pillars, and you have to rotate through 4 people, I believe. You can actually rotate through 3 if you get good resets sometimes, but it's safer to rotate through 4 through the most of the time. So we're going to go healer, and our healer and our demon hunter should be soaking a fair amount of these early, because demon hunter in meta has a obscene amount of leech. I don't know if he's actually playing Netherwalk or if that's like a bug on my UI. Maybe he's actually playing Netherwalk. I think Soul Rending is significantly better during Grievous, but hey, not my call. But our Resto Druid actually is able to keep himself pretty high on health with Undulating Tides and all of his abilities like Bark, Skin, and Iron Bark. So he actually takes a fair amount of stacks pretty early here. So yeah. Then we just kind of rotate through people. On Fortified Grievous, healer's mana shouldn't be too much of an issue. Maybe if the boss went a lot longer, then it could potentially be a problem. But it shouldn't be that bad. Just making sure that you use your bark skin whenever you're soaking the pillar is important. It's easy to get baited into off healing on this fight. I would really advise against it though. I think in general, I would only Swiftman myself if I was absolutely going to die. I don't think I would Swiftman myself any other time. Ooh. Alrighty, so we're on to the Spark Channeler. He's not that dangerous. You just kind of rotate kicks on him. Hey, sometimes you get zapped and taken back to the very beginning. I think Verse was tired. I think Verse was actually tired for this one. There a reason? Okay, so I just got asked in chat if there's a reason that I don't off heal on Galvazzt. So the rationale behind not off healing on Galvazzt is basically it's a boss that you would rather burn and push more damage than spend the globals to heal. Just because elongating out the fight any further is normally pretty bad. So you would spend globals on healing if it's absolutely going to save somebody. But beyond that, it's better to deal more damage than to be more proactive with your healing. So that's just something that you have to think about. There's some fights that are like that. Jaina Proudmoore was a pretty notable one for you just deal more damage as opposed to doing any healing. And then you're a little bit better off. We accidentally get this Orb Guardian with us, so we 3-man the Orb Guardian. But yeah, that's basically the philosophy for how you deal with Galvazzt. Yeah. As you can also see, I have 146 stacks of the Staff Anu Ashara And once you proc it, then you actually explode and deal a pretty sizable amount of damage. The best place to proc this is probably second phase, where all the frogs spawn on this boss. However, I'm going to be a bad boy, and I'm going to proc it on all the trash. Just because pad damage. Alright, so we're killing these Hoodoo Hexers, rotating through kicks on these. You can't kick every single one. You just let the ones that go on your tank go through most of the time. And if it's going to hit you, you should probably pop a defensive, but you should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to be incarning this first phase here, just as soon as I get everything dotted up. Then I'm going to be laying into the Guardian. You don't have to be hitting into the Guardian, especially if you have a Brewmaster Monk. If you have a different tank, I would advise killing the Heart Guardian pretty much instantly, just because they can't dodge the debuff. Whereas with Monk, there's a decent likelihood of them actually dodging the debuff. Alright, so we're going through this phase here. You see me click this orb that actually spawns from the Heart Guardian. So yeah, getting back to Inuashara, the best way to proc it is you actually go 2 regrowths into a wild growth into a swift mend, and that 4th global will proc it instantly. That is by far the best way and the best spell queuing sequence to proc it as a Balanced Druid. So just know that. Alright, so now we're into phase 2 here. Oh shit, I didn't mean to hit my mic. If we had Bloodlust, this is the optimal Bloodlust point of this instance, just for safety reasons, because of these toads that put the healing done debuff on players. Basically, it makes you have a dot, and then it reduces your healing output that you do. So they're actually pretty dangerous for your healer if they get hit by those. So you'll see the healers like standing next to the edge of the room, allowing us to kind of bodyguard him somewhat. And yeah, I would have procced my staff whenever the 4 Hexers spawned on the first Toad set, if I was actually playing to time like a world first key or something like that. But with 21, we were pretty lenient on our timer, so I wasn't too overly concerned. Okay, so now our rogue is off, and he's going to be... So he vanishes out of combat, and then he's actually tricksing our tank, using Tricks of the Trade on our tank, in order to be able to pull all of this trash on top of him. I didn't know this at the time, but yeah, he actually walked back and got a ton of these conscripts. And, yeah, then it's my pad now. And I'm going to just blow up all of these conscripts with my staff in just a couple seconds. Yeah, and now I'm doing 100k DPS. And, okay, whenever people ask me when you should press Starfall, this is when you should press Starfall. Whenever there are 23 targets on your screen, then you press Starfall. Beyond that, not a very good button. Alrighty, and then we let that last Hoodoo Hexer live for the duration of the whole entire fight, just to make sure that we maintain this haste and damage buff. Look at Boomkin DPS nerf Starfall. Yeah, maybe they should nerf Starfall. And you see, hold on, look at this. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, oh, I'm moving it even. I topped damage. I beat a Rogue and a Demon Hunter. I ended at 62k DPS. I've done it. I've completed the prophecy. I beat the Rogue. Nerf Starfall. Alright, on that note, this will be the end of the YouTube video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Check out all the links down in the description. I appreciate you. Later, guys.